Chapter 7 of The Mystery of the Chinese Ring by Andy Adams. A Spirited Box. The native boy raced across the open compound towards the group of low buildings where the servants slept. Jack and Biff ran side by side 10 feet behind the boy. "What is it, Chubba? What is it?" Jack called, but the boy didn't answer until he reached the door of one of the small white cabins. There he stopped, gasping for breath, and turned to Jack and Biff. His face was contorted with fear. His eyes were open wide and filled with terror. "Now get hold of yourself, Chubba. Steady, we're right here. What's inside your cabin that's so frightening?" Chubba's voice trembled as he spoke. "The evil ones, they come. They come to punish Chubba and the father of Chubba." "The evil ones? What are you talking about?" Jack's voice was firm, but his tone was kind. He had to quiet this boy's fears. "It has been spoken," Chubba said, his voice trembling. "Many, many years ago, the gods spoke to the ancestors of my father. They said," and here the boy's voice almost broke, "they said that evil will befall any member of the House of Chin Fu who leaves his land to become a slave of the white man." Biff watched the boy. He felt sympathy towards him, yet it was hard for Biff to believe that such superstitious beliefs could still cast their spell in these modern days. "That's nonsense, Chubba. You and your father are not slaves. You are honorable workers. Without your help, we could not live here. You are well paid, and you hold positions of responsibility and dignity. Enough of this. Just what is inside your cabin?" "Chubba not know, but is bad, very bad. It is voices of the evil ones, casting spell on Chubba and his honorable father." "All right, come on and show us what it is." "Please, Sahib Jack, you to go first." "Okay, come on, Biff." Jack and Biff entered the one-room cabin. It was small but comfortably furnished. Beds stood against the walls on either side of the room. At the rear there was a small, compact kitchen. Biff and Jack inspected the room quickly. They saw nothing unusual. Chubba stood behind them, standing on tiptoes. "There," he said. "Watch, and you shall hear evil spirits." He pointed to a small box on the floor by one of the beds. As they watched, a low growl came from the box. The growl grew louder. It became a wail. Then it turned into the high, piercing scream of a siren. It held this chilling, blood-curdling pitch for about 10 seconds. Then the lid of the box slowly raised. A yellowish hand emerged. It bent over the front of the box. One finger touched a small button. The high scream dropped down to a wail, then to a growl, then stopped. The hand withdrew into the box. The lid closed. All was silent again. Biff put a restraining hand on Chubba, keeping the boy from fleeing in terror. On Biff's face, a slow grin was spreading. He wanted to laugh, but one glance at Chubba's stricken face stopped him. This was a serious thing to Chubba. Chubba would feel Biff was laughing at him, insulting him. Jack stared at the box in amazement. "Now, just what on earth is that thing?" He scratched his head. Biff started across the room towards the box. "Hold it, Biff. We don't know what that gadget might be. Might be a bomb." Now Biff did laugh. Even Jack was concerned. Not terror-stricken like Chubba, but the weird performance of the box had undoubtedly alarmed Jack. Biff reached for the box, bent over and picked it up. Chubba cowered behind Jack, but the native boy's curiosity got the better of him. He watched Biff's every move, his eyes wide. "It's only a toy, Jack," Biff said. "My kid brother got one last Christmas. It was the newest thing out. Caused a sensation." "Let me take a look at it," Jack said, and Biff handed it to him. A great feeling of relief had come over Biff. When Chubba had come rushing in, crying out in a voice filled with fright, Biff had figured that another of the series of strange happenings had taken place. To discover that all the excitement was only about a toy relaxed Biff completely for the first time since he had arrived in the Orient. Jack inspected the toy somewhat gingerly. "How does it work?" Biff took the box back. "Look, I'll show you." He raised the lid of the box, and as he did so, Chubba took a step back. He was taking no chances with evil spirits, even if the Americans did. Jack's and Biff's heads were together inspecting the box. This was too much for Chubba. He had to see too. He cautiously poked his head forward for a closer look. "See this small siren? That's where the noises come from. The toy has two small batteries, like the ones used in a transistor radio. They power this small motor and it does the rest, raises the lid and makes this hand snake out." Biff looked at Chubba and smiled. A shy, friendly grin lit up the native boy's face. "Want to see it work with the lid open?" Chubba nodded his head rapidly. Biff set the toy in motion. The siren reached its high pitch. The hand, attached to the end of a small iron rod, snaked out, flopped over the front side of the box, and touched the cut-off button. That's all there is to it. Some gadget, isn't it? Jack laughed. I can see how it must have been the toy sensation of last Christmas. I can also see why it scared the daylights out of Chubba. It would scare me, too, if it woke me up from a sound sleep. "That's what happened, Sahib Jack. I sleep deep. The thing started screaming. Chubba jumped, run fast, plenty scared for help." "I suppose once it's turned on, it keeps operating until the batteries run out." "That's right," Biff said. "The action is set so it goes off once about every 3 minutes. You turn it off here." Biff pointed to a switch on the bottom of the box. "But how it get into my father's house this morning?" Chubba demanded. "I can answer that one." Jack's shoulders started shaking with laughter. Biff started laughing too, partly from relief and partly because when Jack laughed, everyone joined in. Chubba, his eyes darting from Jack to Biff, decided his worries had passed. He giggled shyly at first, then added his laugh to the chorus. The little white cabin shook with their hilarity. "The evil one," Chubba, Jack said, "is a certain red-headed maintenance mechanic called Muscles." "Muscles? Him play another joke on Chubba. He much cool fellow. Him way in." What's this, Biff thought. Jive talk from a native boy? This kid's all right. "You mean this Muscles is real cool? He's way out, don't you, Chubba?" Biff asked. "That's what Chubba say. He here, man, here." Biff slapped his thighs and doubled up again with glee. Chubba's mixed-up talk was so far gone, it had come back to here. "How old are you, Chubba?" Jack asked. Chubba drew himself fully erect. He puffed out his chest. "Chubba soon be 16. "Aren't you about the same, Biff?" Biff nodded his head. Chubba shake hands with Biff Brewster, Biff Sahib Charlie's nephew. The boy shook hands. There was no doubt but that they took to one another right off. "Chubba, you show Biff around. I've got to get back and see if Mike's been able to—" "I get it, Jack," Biff said. The two boys watched Jack stride back to headquarters house. "Come, Sahib Biff, I show you many things." Biff didn't reply at once. A plan was beginning to shape up in his head. It would work, too, with the help of Chubba. "Okay, Chubba, but first off, cut out that Sahib stuff. To you, I'm just plain Biff." Chapter 8. Still Missing. The friendship between Biff and Chubba developed rapidly. Chubba was an odd boy, with his mixed-up jive talk, his quick Oriental mind, and his desperate anxiety to be like American kid. He was half a head shorter than Biff. He had long, black, wiry hair, usually plastered down with smelly hair tonics. These he got from Muscles. The burly mechanic tried every new hair conditioner that came along in an attempt to control his unruly light brown hair. Chubba's skin was dark, so deeply tan that its yellowish tinge from his Chinese blood hardly showed. He looked more Burmese than Chinese. His daily clothes were a pair of hand-me-down brown shorts, and handmade sandals, ideal for the heavy, humid weather which turned the jungle-enclosed camp into a smoking oven. The shorts Chuba got from the Americans in the camp. Chuba did his own alterations on the shorts to cut them down to size. He was far from an expert tailor. One pair had the left leg 6 inches longer than the right. Another pair, handed down from a man with a 44-inch waist, gave Chuba a laughable balloon effect in the rear, particularly when he ran. Biff's second day at the camp in Unhao began with a visit to the communications room. Mike Dawson, the radio operator, merely shook his head at the question written on Biff's face. No word from Uncle Charlie. Biff hurried through breakfast. He left headquarters house, stepping into a blazing sun already sending heat waves up from the brown dirt surface of the camp. Chuba was waiting just outside the entrance to headquarters. "I hurry up this morning, help my father. Now I can show you the rest of camp." Chuba's father was in charge of the servants in the camp. "My father #1 boss here," Chuba told Biff proudly. The boys roamed around for more than an hour. Chuba chattered on as fast as any of the monkeys scampering about the trees which fringed the camp. "Are there elephants around here?" Biff asked. "Yesterday morning I thought I saw one out of my bedroom window." Sure. Much elephants. Wild ones," Chuba grinned. "But one you saw must be Susie. She dig it here big." "That means likes it here," Chuba explained. Biff smiled to himself. When they cleared jungle to make the camp, many elephants used to push over trees and pull them away. When job is done, Susie and Tiny, that's the other elephant, they won't leave. So who can make an elephant go when he no want to? They stay on. "Where did you pick up all this jive talk, Chuba?" Biff asked. "Jive talk? You mean talk like American boys? They don't all talk that way. Jive talk is American slang. Some boys use it more than others. I learn it from Muscles. He has many magazines come to him by the mail from United States. Many books of the comics, too." "You like to meet up with Muscles? He come back from Rangoon early this morning." "I sure would," Biff said. There was no mistaking Muscles. Biff spotted him as soon as they entered the hangar. The plane maintenance mechanic, wearing only short shoes and a long white mechanic's coat, towered over the small natives whom he was directing. Big was the word for Muscles. Biff could only compare him with some of the giant linesmen he had seen play for the Chicago Bears professional football team. He and his father went to the games in Chicago every now and then. As the boys approached the plane Muscles was working on, they saw the powerful man heave an oil drum off the floor as if it were made of tissue paper. The drum could have weighed anywhere from 100 to 300 pounds. He upended the drum, and a heavy stream of thick oil flowed smoothly to the intake pipe. Muscles held the drum steadily for a couple of minutes. "That ought to do it," he said, and put the drum back on the floor. He looked at the boys. "Well now, if it isn't my young friend and #1 boy, Chuba. Hey, did you have a visitor yesterday morning?" A big grin cracked across Muscles' face. It was clear that Muscles had a great liking for the Chinese boy. "Friend, no friend," Chuba replied. He didn't want Muscles to think he had been frightened by what Chuba now called his evil spirit box. "I find evil spirits in my room. They make with strange noises, like wild animals howling." "Yeah?" Muscles was all interest. "So what gave? Did the evil spirits send you?" "I send them. I take evil spirit's hand, shake it good, and evil spirit's howl became a purr of pussycat." "Didn't scare you?" "Gosh, and that thing cost me $20 to have it sent out from the States." Muscles was disappointed. Biff grinned. Chuba had carried the thing off well. He wasn't going to give Muscles the satisfaction of knowing how really frightened he had been. And you must be Biff Brewster, Muscles turned away from Chubba. Charlie Keene's nephew. You're right the first time, Muscles. I sure heard a lot about you, particularly from Chubba. I'm going to make an American kid out of that rascal, no matter what. Say, I'm awfully sorry about your uncle. He paused as he saw a worried look come over Biff's face. Then he hurried on rapidly. But don't worry, Charlie Keene can take care of himself. He always has. I was with him in Korea, and I know. He'll get back. If he doesn't, we'll go in and get him. Going into Red China to hunt for his uncle had been a thought growing more and more prominent in Biff's mind. If no word came from Uncle Charlie soon, Biff knew that he couldn't just sit around and wait any longer. He'd have to do something. After a few more minutes of talk with Muscles, Biff and Chubba left the hangar. Biff was silent as they walked across the hot field to the shade of a small coconut palm grove. Chubba kept rattling on, but his words just bounced off Biff's ears. Biff seated himself against the leaning trunk of a palm. Sit down a minute, Chubba. I want to ask you some questions. Shoots, Chubba will make with the answers. Biff frowned. Tell me, just how tough would it be to slip across the border into China? For Chubba, easy, very easy. I do it many times. How about me? Think I could get across? Not by yourself, but with Chubba for number one guide. The native boy shrugged his shoulders. I know all trails. I know just where Red Border Patrol guards strong and where they guard weak. Afraid to guard some places. Why is that? Wild animals, black bears, fierce, big, kill a man with one big swipe with paw. Also tigers and leopards, snakes too, all kinds. They hang from trees. Big pythons slide off tree, wrap around man's neck and gurgle, gurgle. Chubba made a rattling noise in his throat. No more man. Biff swallowed hard. And you go over the border in a place where all the wild animals are. Sure, Chubba boasted. Chubba smell and see animals before they see Chubba. It's safer to go into China that way. That way? Safer? What do you mean? Red patrols stay close to main road. Sometimes they let kids like me through. But if they angry or their big boss chew 'em out, then they don't care whether you kid or not. They shoot you or catch you and make you work like slave. Once you enslaved labor camp, you never come back. Biff was silent. You think maybe you like to go in, find your Uncle Charlie. Put snatch on him from red baddies. Something like that, Chubba. Think we could do it? Chubba didn't answer too quickly. His thin face was screwed up in thought. Be most rough, but we smart. Most patrol dumb. Maybe all go well, maybe not. Biff didn't want to hear any more. His mind was made up. If they had a 50-50 chance of finding Uncle Charlie, then that was all he wanted. Meet me back here in an hour, Chubba. I want to talk to Sahib Jack. Biff found Jack Hudson in the communications center, poring over a large map of China. Biff moved to his side. Trying to figure out where Charlie might be, Jack said. He pointed to a position on the map. Now, if you drew a line from Chungking to Chengtu, I'd say he was somewhere west of that line. Biff leaned closer. Why do you think he's in that area? He asked. Well, I do remember Charlie mentioning a small place called Jaraminka about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. He just received a letter from his friend Ling Tang back in the States. Right after that, he went into Rangoon for a few days. I do know that there's a village by that name somewhere in that area. Rough country? Biff asked. In spots, it's north of the Yunnan Plateau, in the foothills of the Mount Minka Konka. And some of those foothills would be called mountains back where you come from, Jack smiled. Anything else to go on? Biff wanted to know. Well, we don't know how much gas Charlie was carrying. Enough for about 1,200 miles. He'd have to allow for a safety margin. As I told you, I figure he planned on about 500 miles in, and 500 back, of course. That would give him a 200-mile safety factor. Jack leaned back against the map table, scratched his head and lit a cigarette. Another thing, that radio signal we got. You mean the one yesterday? Yes. Now, if that was your uncle calling, you're still not sure it was Uncle Charlie? Well, I guess I am. Let's say it was. That's another reason I figure he's over towards the mountain range. I'm not reading you too clearly right now, Biff said. Jack laughed. I'll try to explain. Charlie had a portable radio transmitter with him, a good one, battery operated. Its maximum range would be about 500 miles under ideal conditions. That means he'd have to have straight line transmission. You mean nothing in the way like a high mountain? That's right, Biff. Transmission is greatly reduced if your wave has to bend over hills or mountains. So you figure he's got to be high enough to shoot a straight wave directly to Unhao. Jack nodded his head, and the elevation around Jaraminka really fills that bill, 5,000 to 6,000 feet. How could he ever land in such rugged terrain? Biff asked. Plenty of small plateaus, some of them have been cleared for farming. Biff picked up a drawing compass. He adjusted its opening to fit the 500-mile mark on the scale of miles at the bottom of the map. Then he placed the steel point of the dot marking Unhao. He swirled the compass. The pencil end cut right through the area Jack was describing. Nice figuring, Jack. A faraway look floated across Biff's face. Hey, you're not getting any ideas, are you? Jack demanded. An American boy could never make it across the border. Natives, sure, but you, never. Maybe not, thought Biff, but in his thoughts he was already there.